Today you will learn the four conscious cognitive functions of an INFJ personality type. Cognitive functions are the foundation of the MBTI personality types, as Myers-Briggs simply is a type code based on Carl Jung's theories on the 8 different cognitive functions that people use. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Liz, and this is The Quest In. In a nutshell, a cognitive function is a mental process that you could think of as like a muscle group of the brain. Each cognitive function has certain strengths that develop over time through repetitive use, similar to how a muscle would get stronger over time through exercising it frequently to build up its strength. Each of the 16 personality types in MBTI has its own function stack that orders the 8 cognitive functions in a specific order and reveals what strengths and weaknesses that type typically has. The first 4 functions are conscious, although the mental processes may sometimes still be unconscious. They have the full potential to become conscious in practice throughout one's life. Then there are the lower 4 cognitive functions that are considered shadow functions that are mostly unconscious with a repressed aspect to them. Today we will focus on the conscious functions of an INFJ. The names in quotations are the archetypes that Dr. Beebe picked to illustrate how a function manifests itself within an individual's personality based on its function based on its position in function order. Also, please go ahead, do yourself a favor, download my free guide on MBTI if you want an easy, quick resource to know how to read MBTI type code, know the 8 cognitive functions, and which top 4 functions each of the 16 personality types use. You can access it for free at thequestinpodcast.com/MBTI-guide, also in the description and pinned comment. So the first dominant function for an INFJ is introverted intuition. The dominant cognitive function is a type's lead function in its function stack. It's also known as the hero archetype. It's a cognitive function that type uses automatically, easily, and comfortably. The dominant function strives for competence and mastery while welcoming challenges in a reliable way to serve as the hero. Introverted intuition is an INFJ's dominant cognitive function. And let's see. This is a perceiving function that's very subconscious. It's analytical of trends over time, making the 2 types that lead with introverted intuition very adept at pattern recognition. The 2 types are INFJ and the other one is the INTJ. Introverted intuition, it's not the most common function. In fact, it's the least common function because all the types that are dominant introverted intuition are the 4 least common of the 16 types. And people who kind of have it as a dominant, they've sensed from a young age that they just think differently in comparison to others. I like to compare it to like a computer running on overtime all the time. It's just very subconsciously trying to process information that it intakes through extroverted sensing and trying to distill it into principles. In a couple different books, I've heard of it as a comparison to like reality distillation. And basically, it's like it wants to know the truth of things. And with introverted intuition as a dominant function, people have a deep desire to understand principles and inevitable truths. INFJs and INTJs, they're naturally intuitive with an innate ability to envision predictions, see connections between events, and practice creativity. INFJs and INTJs love to explore ideas that have a complex nature to them. Their intuitive insights often surprise others in conversation. From a young age, this dominant function serves as a strong guiding force leading to the persistent pursuit of personal goals. These types never follow intentions or never have intentions to follow the group, and instead they always prefer to form their own paths in life. Introverted intuition comes in as the hero to these types to clarify what's the right decision. When INFJs decide they want a certain outcome, they become target locked to their goal. In one book about neuroscience and personality, Dr. Dario Nardi says that introverted intuition enters into the flow state through problem solving. So INFJs and INTJs, as well as ENFJs and ENTJs, they'll really get into the flow state and their mind become like active and, enjoyable from unique and novel problems. They take pleasure in trying to solve something. And yeah, so any type that uses introverted intuition, they could be pretty good, innovative problem solvers, although sometimes they're, of course, wrong. And yeah, that's just natural. So the second function is called the auxiliary function. And for the INFJ, this is extroverted feeling. So the auxiliary cognitive function is a type's, it performs like the parent as far as of the cognitive functions, what archetype it embodies. It's a cognitive function that performs to protect and support others, and it serves to develop other people and acts as like a role model. So extroverted feeling, FE, is also what it's called, is an INFJ's auxiliary function. Generally speaking, extroverted feeling makes a type adaptly aware of other people's feelings. Extroverted feeling dominant people, they're very attuned to others, very empathic probably. Additionally, extroverted feeling makes social harmony a priority usually. People who use extroverted feeling dominantly tend to come off to others as quite warm, usually sweet, caring. As the auxiliary function, extroverted feeling may lead INFJs as well as ISFJs. That's the other type that also has FE as their second. And they could be mistaken as extroverts from time to time because when they're comfortable, their personality types can exude a very bubbly, outgoing persona that contradicts their like truly introverted nature. In the auxiliary position, extroverted feeling is arguably the most parent-like of the cognitive functions. It has good intentions and usually strives to serve others in a genuine manner by taking into account other people's emotions. The third cognitive function in a type's stack is known as the eternal child archetype. It's a cognitive function that the type admires in others and needs in order to balance the influence of the parent function of others. So the third function is sometimes creatively original, but it can be a little unstable and a little unreliable. I think so. What this like whole archetype idea of the child is trying to get at is that people use their third function very innocently, and sometimes it's really really good and well done and well used, and then other times it wasn't on point with what they were attempting to resolve, or the outcome that they're striving for. It's not perfectly aim toward with this function all the time. Like it's not, if that makes sense. But so an INFJ's third function is introverted thinking. So people who have extroverted feeling, they're always going to have introverted thinking because those are on an axis. So they're always connected in like in consciousness. So if both are unconscious, they're going to both be shadow functions. If both are conscious, they'll both be of the four ego functions. But anyways, so INFJs and ISFJs, because these are the two types that are going to have extroverted feeling as the second and introverted thinking as the third. Their introverted thinking is used innocently in the child position. Introverted thinking enjoys logical thinking, sometimes just for the intellectual enjoyment and journey of learning and understanding something. Introverted thinking, it pursues truth and logical conclusions in a pure manner. It wants to understand something from the structural components to really be able to break it down inside and out. In comparison to extroverted thinking, that focuses on how to get something done efficiently, but introverted thinking, it focuses on why something works the way it does or why it's needed. The introverted thinking function enjoys learning for the sake of learning, even if there's not always a directly applicable purpose in the outside world. Lastly, I would argue that INFJs, they're as much thinkers as they are feelers because introverted thinking as their third function, it's in their preferred attitude, like it's the introverted function. And, as introverts, it's going to be easily accessible and preferred to dabble in rather than the extroverted functions sometimes. Although, the second function, it might be stronger. The third function, it's like because it matches the attitude, a type might tap into it more willingly. And let's see, the last is the fourth function. So the fourth is the inferior cognitive function, also known as a type's anima in women or animus in men, and it's sometimes referred to as the aspiration type. So this one in a person's function stack indicates what mission or higher cause a type is working towards and can serve as an important tool to transform their self. Notably, this function tends to be weak and underdeveloped in the first half of life. However, it's been claimed to be a gateway to help one's personality blossom later in life. So the inferior function of extroverted sensing leads to INFJs enjoying extroverted sensing, but maybe not being the most naturally good at it. Like they could tap into it, but maybe sometimes it's like an insecurity where, they're not sure if they're doing it properly. And well, extroverted sensing, it's a very force motivated function. It acts and reacts quickly and it moves with the world. This inferior function, it's important for personal growth in a personality type. So as I said, extroverted sensing, it's a highly responsive cognitive function that adapts in real time to external world situations in the present moment. This extroverted function can quickly gather sensory information from the outside world to make decisions. Extroverted sensing enjoys experiencing new things, interacting with the outer environment, and indulging in sensual pleasures and creative arts. Extroverted sensing is the opposite of introverted intuition, which takes primary place in, introverted intuition, it's totally in the mind, but extroverted sensing, it's totally in the world, like in the body, in the environment. But introverted intuition and extroverted sensing, those operate on an axis the same way introverted thinking and extroverted feeling do. So when they're on an axis, you have to think that, they're kind of opposites in some way. When you're doing one, you cannot do the other exactly at the same time, but they do build into and off of each other. So inferior extroverted sensing, it ideally offers a healthy balance to the overthinking habits of introverted intuition. INFJs, they need to actively work on developing extroverted sensing in a healthy, productive way as it's the weakest of their primary functions. Because of this inferior function, this personality type may be vulnerable to being overwhelmed with sensory information, or, when they're stressed, they may over focus on real world details. And yeah, whenever there's an imbalance, they just have to look toward like the other direction. So like extroverted sensing, usually it's like so focused on like the present moment and like instant gratification. And that's opposite from introverted intuition, which is solely focused on like the future. Like introverted intuition is very goal oriented and it's like where we headed toward. So this is where people have to find their personal balance of like, staying goal oriented, but not being so overwhelmed or so out of touch with like the present moment. But, each type, they could have like a grip, and I'll do a future video on this because, to be honest, inferior extroverted sensing is a slightly dangerous placement if a type is stressed. Extroverted sensing has an impulsive nature to it, which is, it's a powerful force, but as an inferior cognitive function. If one goes into a grip, for INFJs and INTJs, this would be known as an SE grip or extroverted sensing grip, and that could lead to poor self-control, impulsive decision-making, and maybe regretful choices. But I have a full article that I'll link below where you can read about the dark side and unexpected toxic traits of an INFJ. And yeah, in a future video, I'll walk through how all 8 of the functions could go dark. So for now, that concludes today's episode, but I will cover the shadow functions in a future episode. So please sure to like, subscribe, and just thank you so much for joining me today on this quest in. If you got value from this and enjoyed this video, I hope you stick around. And until next time, please take care.